Hi, nice to see you again. I know it's been a while. We are now 25 days into the year 2023, and I'm just now doing a video talking about my plans for the coming year. This will be short. I just wanted to kind of come in and touch base mostly because I am going to be resurrecting the YouTube channel, and I do have plans that you might find interesting. So let's touch base. Let's talk about it. So probably as of right now, the most exciting thing I've got going on is I'm going to start self-publishing my books here in the future, for the foreseeable future. I can always have my mind changed. I'm not exactly sure how well this is going to go for me because I've been trying to learn, but there are a lot of facets to self-publishing that I don't think some people consider, especially those of us who don't do it. So mad props to the many self-publishers out there who are busting their asses and doing the best they can, because there's a lot that goes into it. So over at my website, summercannon.com, I'll drop a link down below. I kind of talk about it. There is a shop up on the website too if you want to buy signed copies of books that I happen to have in stock right here, or merch, which is kind of a new exciting thing. You can do so there. Again, link down below. But my self-publishing kind of company is titled Left Hand Path Books. Matt Willison did the logo for it, and I don't know, I'm kind of excited. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little dubious about my ability to do this well, but I'm excited. I'm excited. There's going to be some new stuff put out this year. We're going to shake up some of the old stuff, maybe re-release a couple of things, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I really hope that it does well. I really hope to get some of my books into more readers' hands, in front of more faces, and yeah, it's a hope and a plan for new and better things. So that's one thing down. Second thing, and you especially on YouTube will be aware of the shenanigans. My podcast, A Case for Classics. So back in December, I put up a post here on YouTube saying, if you see a bunch of posts from me, it's because I'm uploading my podcast up here just basically to archive it, because I was going to shut down the podcast. Now, let's talk for a second. I don't really want to get too very personal, but let's just say that the stresses and the heartbreaks of the past 3 years, as well as some ongoing issues, really started to get kind of heavy for me around September of 2022. It just started, I felt like I was able to stay upright up until about September, and then things started getting too much. Things started piling up on me, and I had myself a little bit of a freak out, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And I do this thing when I start to feel really badly about myself. I want to disappear. I want to go away. I assume everybody thinks badly about me as I do. I assume everybody sees me for the horrible piece of garbage that I am, like I do. And I just want to disappear. So one of the things I was planning to do was to get rid of this podcast that I try to talk you into reading works of classical literature. And it's niche. I knew it was niche when I started it. When I started doing it, it was more for me than anybody, and I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed reading the works and then trying to come up with ways to make it palatable as a half hour or less podcast to try to talk you into why it's good, why it's worth your time. And I knew there were going to be some lead balls. Like, I know the Jane Austen works. I have a thing for Jane Austen, and I knew people were going to be like, nope, I'll listen to your podcast, but I'm not picking up the book. And because it is a niche podcast, it doesn't have a whole lot of listeners. It has a respectable amount, though. It really does. I was always pleased with that. But it takes a lot of time to do. It takes a lot of time to read those books. And when we're talking classics, like, some of those are honka-chonka books. They're big doorstop books. It takes a long time to read them. It takes a long time to decide what excerpt I'm going to read on the podcast to try to whet your appetite. It takes a long time to write the episodes. And it just started to become like, nobody will care if this goes away. So I announced, I did like a goodbye episode of the podcast, and a couple people reached out to me and said, please don't get rid of this. I've really enjoyed this podcast. Please don't go away. So then the next plan was, okay, maybe I'll do an episode here or there and I'll just upload them all onto YouTube. Maybe it'll find a bigger audience there. And I sat down for a few days and started the process of converting the files into something that YouTube would accept. And I uploaded a few. I uploaded the first 5 and quickly found that YouTube's really uptight about copyrighted stuff. Now, most of the books that I cover on A Case for Classics, not all, but most of them, have gone into the public domain, so there isn't a copyright issue. But this would be a problem with some of the works, especially down the road. And it just... So I sat down with my husband, who is my most trusted advisor, and we talked it out. And he said, just keep doing the podcast. It was never a problem. You made it the problem. And he's right. I had to get out of my own head and just get back to basics. I'm doing this for me. If other people like it, awesome. That really makes me happy. And to the people who reached out to me and asked me not to get rid of it, I'm sorry. Thank you. It meant a lot to me. I'm sorry. At a time when I needed it. So the podcast isn't going anywhere. It's still there. It's still on all your streaming services, whatever you use to stream podcasts, it's still there. I will be resuming that as soon as I can get myself back in order. And we will be resuming with the much anticipated, if you listen to the podcast, if you listen to the last few episodes, I'd been teasing that my 100th episode would be the Dickens episode, where I'm just basically going to spend a half hour telling you about Charles Dickens, not necessarily talking about any of his works, just talking about the guy, because there's a lot to talk about, good and bad, and I'm really going to enjoy that, so I'm going to do it. And in the future, if I do an episode that I find might be more widely received, I'll throw it up on YouTube too, so it'll be in podcast form and up here on YouTube. Now, speaking of YouTube, I know I let the channel kind of die because I've been trying to figure out what I am, what I'm trying to do, and how I can kind of put myself out there as a creator without being annoying, and while also being me, selling myself as a creator, as an author, maybe enticing you to pick up some of my books. So I've decided to resurrect the YouTube channel, and we're going to go back to what I was doing back when we were quarantining, back when the pandemic was really in a stranglehold. So I've decided the year 2023 is going to be the year of the werewolf over here. If you listen to the podcast I co-host with Matt Wilderson and Mary San Giovanni, the Ghostwriters podcast, you know that last October I talked them into doing some of the Howling movies, the later ones, and it was a miserable experience. And I remember when we were watching one of the movies, I was in our text chain, and I said to them, is it too much to ask that a werewolf movie be about werewolves, or at least have werewolves? Because believe it or not, that was a problem with some of these movies. And you know, I mean, you've been here a while, you know, I got a thing for the werewolf. I've also, I don't know, I'm kind of offended by how little respect the werewolf gets in cinema. But I know that there are a lot of werewolf books out there. I've already done the videos before talking about movies that I love and books that I love, but now we gotta find new ones. We gotta find new ones that I love. So we're going to be coming back reviewing books and movies about the werewolf. I've already watched this year. So Tubi, if you listen to the Ghostwriters podcast, you know I love Tubi. But it's all it's also I love it and I kind of hate it. So I did already watch a werewolf movie this year, hoping it would be good. It had an interesting title, so I was like, ooh, this might be good. It wasn't. I hate to say it, it wasn't. And I'm not in the business of coming on here and just ripping on small creators. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. So I won't be talking about the ones that I just loathed. So I won't be talking about this one. If I watched it and I liked it, but just had a few issues with it, we'll talk about it. But the ones that are just maybe kind of irredeemable, I won't be on here talking about it. I'm not going to come on here, especially since this movie was kind of recent. It came out in 2021. I'm not going to do that to those creators. Keep doing your thing, keep creating. I'm not going to hinder you at all. So, yeah, we'll be back 2023, the year of the werewolf. I will say, just between you and me, I do have a werewolf book that I wrote a few years ago and set aside so that I could rethink some things about it. I can't guarantee it, but maybe we'll resurrect that book, and if not release it, at least start reworking it, because there are like 4 unfinished books in my pipeline right now that are like half written that need to be finished up and put out. And we're going to work on that this year. We're going to work on being more creative, being less mopey, being more sociable, being more out there. And that's what I have planned. So, yeah, I've kept you long enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I will put links to my website. I'll put links to A Case for Classics. I'll put links to the Ghostwriters podcast. Check me out. Thank you for being here. As always, thank you for putting up with my nonsense. I hope the world is treating you well. And yeah, get ready for werewolves. So come back to this struggle, the struggle of the remote. It's never going away. So, okay, everybody, bye-bye. Oh yeah, it did it.